Hey everybody, my name is Claire and today I'm going to talk to you about crochet styles. This is not crochet techniques or stitches specifically, this is the way that people actually do crochet in mechanical level. This is my big interest. I do a lot of different crochet styles, and the purpose of this video series is to kind of let you know that there are many different ways to do crochet. Everyone is going to be familiar, if they're on YouTube, with the pen or pencil grip or the knife grip. And usually what you see is right-handed. And I just want to kind of explain that there are many more options for you. So if you find that one particular style doesn't work, then you can certainly learn something different. I very much believe everybody can learn how to do crochet, and it's really just a matter of finding the style that works for you. So let's begin and let's talk a little bit about styles. The first thing to know about styles is that the styles that you can do are kind of split between whether you hold the yarn in the same hand or the opposite hand. Everyone will know this one. Here is the hook in my other hand. Here's the yarn in the opposite hand. I don't want to say left or right. If you were doing left-handed crochet, it's effectively reversed. So we don't necessarily say hook in the right hand, yarn in the left. We say, well, what I say is hook in your main or dominant hand and the yarn in the opposite hand. If you're doing left-handed crochet, obviously, for knife grip, it'll look like that. Now, the thing is that although that is the most common style and the kind of division that people will see, this is not the only method of doing crochet. There is an entire type of, or like category of crochet styles, which is the yarn in the same hand as the hook. And here is one of them. This is the fast throw, and it's very much like knitting. The throwing action is very similar. If you do knitting, you literally just throw the yarn around the hook and then pull it through. You can also do the simplified throw, which is put the yarn in, put the hook in, sorry, take it around, throw again, there. And the actual production of the stitch is exactly the same. And you can see we can just go straight over to knife grip. And the motion is different in that it's simply a matter of whether you throw the yarn or whether you pick the yarn. Now, there is a type of style that you can do that involves passing the yarn back and forth while you do stitches, and that one is far more uncommon. But you do definitely see some people doing the throwing style or with the yarn on this side, or the same side as the hook. The advantage of doing a style like this is you can definitely be a lot more precise about it because you leave your hand to do nothing but manipulate the piece. I have found that this style works very good for doing very small items or for doing lace. And with that said, let's just talk about the elements of a crochet style. So every crochet style that you will do is composed of 3 elements. How you hold the hook, which could be like this, the pencil, however you'd like to do it. And then also how you hold tension on your yarn, which can be really anything. You can wrap the yarn any way you like. You can hold it very loosely depending on the type. You can just grab there, single finger. Some people will actually hold the piece like this and hold tension here. A number of other people will wrap the yarn around their finger, and as they work they'll just slip the loops, and that is how they hold tension. There's many different ways to hold tension. It's probably the most variable part of actually doing a particular crochet style and one of the easier things to modify. Many people will actually change how they hold tension simply so that they can adjust to the type of yarn they've got. For example, this particular yarn is ribbon yarn. It's fairly slippery. There's no ply. Obviously it's a woven yarn. So it's depending on your speed, this is going to be enough to hold tension. But again, very variable. And the last part of the style is actually holding the piece. And if you're doing knife grip, what you'll find is that this hand, your other hand, holds tension on the yarn and also holds the piece. And these 3 elements are they're passed from hand to hand, or the work is distributed between both hands. But every single crochet style you see will always be composed of these 3 elements. And then how you modify or change these three elements determines essentially what your particular style is. So let's talk about how we can actually modify styles. The easiest thing, like I said before, to do is simply to change how you hold tension. This is how I generally hold tension anytime I'm doing the fast throw. And it's fairly straightforward. I hold it quite loosely. I have the finger here. The yarn feeds quite easily. This is not the only way to hold tension, and it's certainly not like certainly not the most common way to do it. It's also possible for you to just not hold tension at all. Some people are just who essentially they don't have the dexterity, they don't have the finger strength, they just can't get that action. What they'll do instead is just put it in, throw, and this hand does nothing. Pull it through. Again, this hand doesn't have to do anything. And they have this finger here that just like holds the yarn in place and pulls it through. And you can see that this is a perfectly normal stitch, but at no point did we have to hold tension on this yarn. We can just let it do whatever. So that is just one example of the type of modifications you can do just for the throwing style. Obviously for this style, for what would be considered picking and knitting, or the traditional style, there's every other possible way of actually holding this yarn. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be like, there's no one technique that works best. It's very much an individual thing. Now, actually holding the hook hold is incredibly variable, and it absolutely varies by the type of hook you have as well as your particular level of comfort. If you're doing knife, the most common one you'll see will be something like this, held kind of loose, and the thumb goes right here. This does not need to be here though. In pen, you have it like this, but there's every possible variation of how you hold it, and whether you can be up close to the hook if that's how you roll. Some people come all the way back down and find this more comfortable. And really, there's a dozen different ways to do it. You don't even need to keep your thumb here. It is possible to not use your thumb at all. And the motions are almost exactly the same. And if you are disabled, or if you find that your thumb is damaged, or for whatever reason you don't have the flexibility here, you can just swap to something like this and use your other fingers to actually manipulate the hook. There's no wrong way to do it, And it's certainly much easier if you find, like, if there's, if your thumb is sore, or if you simply just find keeping it there or holding it there is too painful. There you go. Now, if you hold the hook with the yarn, there's obviously a dozen different ways to do this as well. The one that like I know best would be the fast throw, and you can see that I can move the hook very easily with my thumb. A lot of people can't do that, so they end up moving the hook differently, or they just don't move the hook with the thumb at all and just use their entire hand to move it. Again, no wrong way to do this. Now, for actually manipulating the piece, this really comes into play when you're doing what is actually real one-handed crochet. One-handed crochet usually requires, the most common way of doing it requires that the hook be held stationary, and obviously that is one element of the crochet style being taken kind of out of consideration. It is held stationary, and then all the work is done by the other hand, and that means that actual manipulation of the piece is the thing that does most of the work. So we can go in, grab, and you can see that actually manipulating the piece is what forms the stitch. And there we go. So how you manipulate the piece, again, is very much a personal thing, but I find that certain styles are just very good at doing particular things. But overall, people will usually find one style that they're good with or they're quick with, and they will stick to it. Styles can be modified in a million different ways for ergonomics. This is definitely something that you want to look into if you really just want to, if you want to kind of improve your crochet and also make sure you don't hurt yourself while doing it. Definitely recommend taking a look at what good ergonomics are. I would say, as a good kind of general rule, try not to hold too tightly and don't overextend any joints. As in, if you're constantly holding your hand like this and overextending here, and essentially keeping this under tension quite a lot, eventually your arm and your hand is going to start to hurt. eventually if you're gripping too tightly here, keeping that our intention, that's going to start to hurt. The best thing that you can possibly do, regardless of what hook or whatever you use, is learn how to be gentle, hold it loose, let it be, let it roll, let it go easy between your fingers, and learn to keep your tension kind of a little bit loosey-goosey. Like you can always recover from having loose tension. You can just tighten up a little bit. Having very tight tension is going to bite you in the ass eventually. But the last thing I'd like to talk about is geographical distribution of a lot of crochet styles. This is something that I find really interesting. I follow a lot of different crocheters from across the world on Instagram, and I'm always looking as to what kind of hooks they use, what kind of style they use, and then like what kind of projects they're interested in or what's more common for their area. And what I find is that in Europe and North America, a lot of what I see will be the knife grip right-handed, or left-handed, usually right-handed. There's some number of people doing pencil grip, but the vast majority, I think, would use the knife grip. But as you go to the Middle East and Asia, you see a lot more people doing pencil grip in some way. And then if you go to more Asian or whatever like that, you also see people doing things like holding the loop with their thumb, for example, for extra stability. The throwing styles, like this one, they seem to be a particular evolution of knitting, and I've seen a lot of Irish crocheters like myself who would have initially learned this style before we started learning the more traditional knife grip. Then doing just the slow throw or whatever is all over the place. I don't think that one actually has a particular region that is common to. I hope this has been informative. I'll be doing some more videos in the series and we'll talk about different styles then. In the meantime, I hope you guys keep crocheting, and if you don't crochet, I hope that you find a style that works for you so that you can start. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.